Before we begin, I just wanted to understand what kind of products that you're working on so that I may even tweak my examples based on that. So, uh, quick show of hands. If you're working in a companies, can some of you just let me know what are the categories of companies you're working with? Are they like e-commerce, travels, finance, banking? Can anyone of you tell me a few names? Guys at the back, where are you from? Anyone, don't feel shy. um, Service companies, okay, tell me, which category is your company from? Or you're studying? Oh, awesome. Okay, not the right user. Okay, so what I'll do is that I'll take probably a couple of common examples like e-commerce or travel to cover some of the things I want to talk about. So before we get into a deep dive, how many of you, so most of you are developers. Any one of you feel that analytics is only meant for marketeers or product managers and not so important for developers? Raise your hand. No one. Good. So what we believe is acquiring a user is only half of the growth, because the moment you acquire a user, there is a huge retention churn that happens when your app's on your website. In fact, if you look at the stats, almost 77% of the customers are lost within the first week. So you install an app, and almost 77% of them will stop using it within a week's time. In fact, the other stacking statistics is almost 60% of the people, almost 60% of the apps, in fact, are being used less than 10 times. So you put so much of time and effort in building those awesome apps and websites, and a large portion of them, of the users who are downloading your apps or using your websites, will use them less than 10 times. So what you need to figure out is you have a very small period of time to make sure that you're building the right product so that you can impress those users and retain them. But before we get into the details of analytics, let's just just understand a brief history of how analytics was made. So a few years, in fact, a lot of years now back, what started as a web analytics is how people started measuring. A lot of companies are still based on web analytics, but when we started tracking people and users on web, it was largely cookie-driven. So you would know that, and you were tracking URL, pages, page views, etc., and that's how you were kind of figuring out how many people are using your products, how they're transacting and tracking funnels, etc. And then a few years back, things changed drastically with the invention of mobile apps. A lot of people have started using mobile internet now. They're accessing, that has become primarily the only way of interacting with the businesses. And that's how the tracking also changed. So, mobile, in the desktop era, people were tracking cookies, which became device IDs now. Instead of pages, they've started, tracking page events, etc., in mobile apps, basically to do the same. But what was missing in both these eras were people were still figuring out or tracking these things in silos. So whether you are using a product on a desktop or on a mobile, people used to think that you are two different people, irrespective of whether using the same user, same company's product on a desktop or a mobile site. Which is not the case with Facebook Analytics. What we do with Facebook Analytics is, using the Facebook data that we already have, we match the cookie and the app session on your devices, and we tell you that it's the same user who's using your product on mobile or website, even if he is not logged in on both devices. In fact, we've recently launched support for bots, pages, and offline conversion as well, and I'll take you through some of these in details. So pages support is something that we've recently added in Facebook Analytics. So if you have a Facebook page and you want to look at how people are engaging with that page, you can now opt in for a dashboard in Facebook Analytics, and you can figure out that whatever posts that you're making on Facebook page, how people are engaging with them. So you can get simple data like how they're engaging in terms of the reactions, number of comments, share, etc., which is pretty basic. But what you can do is, and I'll cover that in detail, is that you can club that with the other information that's available. using the omni-channel approach that is available in Facebook Analytics, you can actually see if you've made a post on Facebook page, how many of them people have actually opened up your app reading that page. So you can actually link those two together and figure out, how is your marketing or whatever promotions or effort that you're putting on a Facebook page is actually resulting in business. And you can track it up to the conversion. So you can say that, how many people have read this on my Facebook page and actually converted back on my app or made a transaction. Similarly, for offline, we've recently added support for offline transactions as well. So even if the transaction is happening outside the website or an app, so let's say if you are a finance company wherein a person has done a lot of research online and then ended up buying a product offline through an agent, or let's say if you are a car dealer or a car company, wherein I'll do all my research online and probably book a car drive offline. How will you figure out, whatever investments that you're making over desktop, your desktop site or your mobile apps is actually resulting in getting you more transactions or engagement? Using offline data, what you can do is that you can upload all that offline data on Facebook Analytics, back to Facebook Analytics. And for all the users that we have matched in Facebook, we'll show you the analytics of how they have engaged with your website. So we've discussed this, I think, throughout the day, that there is so much data available right now that a lot of people spend their almost all the time in digging out that data and rather than relying on the insights. So we don't want people to work so much on digging the data. We would want them to either use that time to actually work on the implementations rather than just finding out those insights. So these are the three things that we felt were pretty challenging these days. And we believe Facebook Analytics is in a great shape to meet all these three challenges. I'm going to take you through some of the features that are available on Analytics. But before we dive into the details, here are three things that you should note. One, Facebook Analytics is absolutely free. There is no paid version at all. So, irrespective of the amount of data you're tracking, you will never be asked to upgrade to a premium version. Two, it's cross-platform. So you don't have to implement a different analytics or a different tool in different platforms. So using the same Facebook Analytics, you can track all your data across different platforms, which is whether your website, your mobile app, your Facebook bot, your pages, or even offline data. And last but not the least, I think this is one of the common misconceptions that we've heard about Facebook Analytics, is that using a Facebook login is mandatory for using Facebook Analytics, which is not the case. So no matter how much I would love you to use Facebook login, but even if you're not using Facebook login, you can still use Facebook Analytics and the data would remain the same. There's no impact whatsoever of using Facebook login on Facebook Analytics. Let's quickly look at how would you implement it. We've made the process as simple as possible. That's why we call it a two-step process. There's not even a third step for implementing Facebook Analytics. The first one primarily is you just need to install the SDK and start logging events. Pretty much it. How many of you are using Facebook SDKs in your products? OK, 1, 2, 3, that's it. So Facebook JavaScript SDK is used in a lot of websites for enabling features like share, Facebook login, etc. So if you're already using JavaScript SDK in your websites, Facebook Analytics is working for you. Just need to go there and start enabling it. Similarly, for marketeers, I think there's just one in the room. If you're already using Facebook Pixel for tracking your ads, their conversions, etc., Facebook Analytics is already working for you. You just need to go to the dashboard and enable it. You don't have to do anything else apart from these. What you would be required to do is create an event source group. So event source group is a feature that tags your data across different platforms. So you have to go just and do this one-time exercise wherein you have to tell Facebook that, hey, this is my app, this is my page, and this is my website. I'm the owner of all these three things. You just have to flag it once to Facebook, and then we start gathering that data and giving you an omni-channel dashboard. Here are some of the key features that are available on Facebook Analytics. I'll cover a few of them in the session today. Let's start with events. How many of you are familiar with events? Like, you know what events are? How to track them? Yes, no, don't care. Okay, perfect. I'll just explain you briefly. So events are basically any action that people take on your products. It could be a click, it could be a purchase, it could be any page view, or anything that you care about. Anything that you want to track, any action that the user has taken on your app or a website, can be tracked using events. And it's a simple step that you can start logging on Facebook Analytics. The second piece is the event parameters. So let me just clarify that with an example. So what happens is, let's say you're an e-commerce company and you want to track an event, which is, in this case, add to cart. So you want to track how many people are actually adding products in the cart. But would you just want to capture that event, or would you want to capture more information to take better decisions? So let's say in this case, would you just want to track that 100 shirts or 100 items were added in the cart? Or would you want to also know that these were 100 shirts that were added in the cart? Not only shirts, these were apparently Oxford shirts that were added in the cart of X amount, etc. and etc. You can capture all these additional parameters in an event using something called event parameters in Facebook Analytics. This will help you in doing more meaningful analysis. So let's say if you have to, in this case, if you have to decide inventory, if you only get something from your dashboard that says you've sold 100 things today, you would not even know how to manage that inventory. You would not even know what is selling, what is not. With event parameter, what you can do is you can actually figure out you're actually selling maybe 20 Oxford shirts or 30 different kind of shirts, and you can figure out what is the inventory that you need to manage on your site. In fact, by adding currency and the value even in the events parameter, it will also help you in tracking the lifetime value of the user. So even if, let's say, there are a few items which are selling in low numbers, but if you know the currency and the amount in the event parameters, you can actually figure out the impact on the GMV because of those elements. All right, how do you set up events? It's pretty simple. The key of setting up events is you need to optimize for the most important action. So depending upon what business or what products you're building, what apps you're working on, you just need to figure out what is the most important action that you need to track to make sure whether you're measuring or whether you're moving towards success or not. So let's say in case of e-commerce, what would be the most important action for an e-commerce company? Say something, folks. If you're an e-commerce company, what would be the most important action for you? Someone said purchase. Awesome. Yeah, that's the correct one. So what you need to do is you need to start tracking from purchase. So track purchase and then go backwards. So track purchase and then figure out what are the steps that are leading to purchase. So a step before purchase could be something like adding to cart. A step before could be a page view. A step before could be a search. So start with the action that matters the most to your business and then go backwards. One thing to note here is in Facebook Analytics, you can add n number of events. It's absolutely free, irrespective of the number of events you're adding or the amount of data that is being logged through those events, right? So we talked about event, which is what part of it. In an example here, I told you what is being sold. It was an Oxford shirt which was being sold. But the most interesting part about the businesses or the products that you're going to build in future would be who. Remember, we talked about the people problem. You don't want to know that XYZ cookie purchased a shirt from me, or a particular device ID is, buying a mobile phone from my device. You would want to know who actually is buying it. What Facebook Analytics does is it gives you a flexibility of tracking user parameters by using a feature called user properties. So what you can do is, apart from adding the event parameters, like what kind of a shirt it was, what kind of a value it is. So let's say in this case, it could be the SKU name, it could be value, it could be category. You can also add parameters like who purchased it. So you can add things like their installed sources. So let's say any user who was registered on your website or on your product before 2014, or it could be something if you're running an engagement program or a loyalty program. Let's say these loyalty programs being run by the airlines. So you can figure out that how many of your users were of your gold, silver, platinum users are actually using your website and making those purchases, and even if your loyalty program is working or not. You can even track the install sources, and those install sources can be even outside Facebook. What you need to do is that you need to use the API to ingest this data on Facebook Analytics, and for all the matched users, we'll start showing you more details. Here an example of, I'm not sure if it's very clearly visible from the fag end, is how you can actually filter out data in Facebook Analytics using user properties and custom parameters. So let's say if you have a funnel in Facebook Analytics, which is a purchase funnel, you can actually use these user properties to filter out that entire funnel. So let's say if you want to see how your users are, how many users who were registered on my site last year have actually purchased those products, or you want to compare loyalty programs, you can actually put a user property filter saying that only show me converges from people in silver category or gold category, and you can figure out how these loyalty programs working for you. In this case, we are showing you an example from all the users who were registered on a site before 2014, and you can even filter down using the demographic parameters that are available. So here in this case, we filter out saying that show me the report for people who are registered on my site before 2014, and filter it down for people who are either from San Francisco or Seattle. I think these are some of the hygiene dashboards that are available in Facebook Analytics. Most of you would be very familiar with it. This is the active user dashboard. I think all of you would be familiar. You can come here and you can see how many users are coming to your products on a day. You can filter it out on different platforms. You can see between Android, iOS, website, etc. You can track median sessions, overall sessions within the analytics. I think we briefly talked about re-engagement and how it is important. I think one of the most important things that you can track from Facebook Analytics is re-engagement through these graphs. So how these retention graphs work? So let's say you're an app developer. You released an app. What these graphs will show you that how many people are coming back to your product at a particular frequency, which will give you the number of how engaged your users are. Let's say you've pushed an app update or you've released a new feature, and you see the engagement has gone up. So there are more and more people who are coming back to your website. It gives you a good signal that whatever update that you have done or whatever bug fix that you have done has impacted positively. But if you go back to these dashboards after a week of that app update or a new website release, and you see the engagement has dropped, there are less and less people are coming back to your website, that gives you a very strong signal that something has gone wrong. If you have not figured it out yet, you probably need to go back and see what are the things that you have released that are not doing too well. If you're tracking the overall value of the product in Facebook Analytics, like we discussed in user property, you can in fact also track the LTV value, the lifetime value of a user, and you can see it in the graph within this dashboard itself. We talked about funnel. Here's a quick example of how you can build funnel on Facebook Analytics. It's pretty simple. Once you have configured all the events, basically all you need to do is select those events and make sure that they're in the right order, and boom, your funnels are done. You can create ad hoc funnels, or you can save these funnels for your future access as well. So here, it's a regular purchase funnel. I'm not sure how visible it is from the And so I'll just read it out. It's a simple purchase funnel of search, add to cart, and purchase. What you can do is that you can filter it out on different categories. There is a show by option on the left, and you can filter it down using your app versions, your different platforms, and even different devices, and figure out how your conversion is working across different app versions or your different devices or different platforms. I think this is one of the most powerful information that's available in Facebook Analytics. We initially talked about knowing who's actually using your product. Facebook Analytics gives you a very powerful information about who's using your product. And for this, you don't even have to use a Facebook login. In fact, these users don't need to have been, you don't even need users to register on your products to get this information. Imagine if you're a travel site, or if you're even an e-commerce site, you would want to know, where are people coming to your website, from which cities they're coming, what's their male-female ratio, so that you can add more inventory. So let's say if you see that 70% or 80% of your user base is female, then you can stock your inventory accordingly. If they're a male, you can accordingly do that. You would want to know which cities they're coming from. You would want to know what is their age group, etc., etc. You can get all that information within Facebook Analytics without asking it from the user. But obviously, in an aggregated and anonymous format. We would not want to compromise on user privacy. So you will not be able to find out demographic detail of a particular user, but you'll get it in an aggregated anonymous format, which will help you in making more meaningful decisions. Apart from the demographic information, the other interesting thing that's available in analytics is you get to know all the other pages that their users are using. So let's say what kind of interest that they have. So, and you can also use this information to make a better marketing strategy. So let's say I'll give you a quick example on how a product company used this information to make a better product decision. So there was a hotel company that figured out a lot of their users who are using their product were engaging with pet-related pages. So what they did with this information is that they added a new category within the company as pet-friendly hotels. That gave them a huge jump in terms of engagement and retention of their users. So you can find all these interesting stats and pieces of information within analytics. You don't have to either use an additional tool or implement another tracking tool. The last piece that we discussed in terms of the challenges were too much of data. So the first one was, the analytics not being people-centric. We've covered that. Through omnichannel, you can get that information. The second one was people-centric. You can get all the information about the demographic data. Then it was not omnichannel. You can get that in Facebook Analytics. And the third piece that we talked about as a challenge was there was too much of data available, and people end up spending so much of time in digging that data that they don't have enough time to actually make those implementations. So what we've done recently is that we've launched a new feature called Automated Insights. What it does is it automatically studies your data, and using machine learning, it pops up some of the interesting insights that it founds for your own data on top of the Facebook Analytics. You don't have to do, again, any additional implementation for this. This automatically pops up interesting insights for you. The idea for implementing this feature is to make sure that you spend more and more time in implementing those insights rather than digging those insights. So here in this example, it's showing that 46% of the users of a particular app version are spending more time than the other one. So this is a good signal for you. So imagine, let's say, again, going back to the same app release example that we shared. So let's say if after a particular app release, your conversion drops drastically. It's very likely that it'll be captured in the automatic insights, and it'll come on top of your analytics saying that, hey, in this particular app release, the user engagement has gone down drastically. So you don't have to actually dig out that data, and it'll keep showing it to you upfront. And it also has these two thumb signs on top of it, which is useful, not useful. So the more feedback that you will give it to these cards, saying that it's useful or not useful, the better it'll start getting with time. So that was Facebook Analytics for you, for bots, for pages, basically Facebook Analytics for all the products that you would want to work on. If you want to implement Facebook Analytics and you need some kind of a support, there are various channels available. I'll just show it on the slide. Although it's pretty simple, you might not need any of them. But we've made sure that support is available across multiple channels. So we have a developer group. There is a help center. There is a direct support link, FAQs, bugs. In fact, we are there on Twitter as well. So if you want to find us there, you can ask our questions there as well. Before I close, here is a summary and quick tips on how you can make the most of Facebook Analytics. One, like we discussed before, the most important thing you can do for any analytics tool is to make sure that you're logging events. If you're not logging right events, you'll not get the right data. So make sure that you're logging the right events and also adding additional parameters with them. Two, combine the funnels with demographic information to see better data. So one of the most powerful things that's available with Facebook Analytics is the demographic information of the users. So make sure that you're combining that with your funnel. So if you have a conversion funnel of search, purchase, search, add to cart, and purchase, you can use demographic funnels available in Facebook Analytics to see users from which city are converting better, users from which demography, like male, female, which age group are converting better. So don't forget to use that. Build cohorts to understand retention and LTV. One of the features that we've showed before in one of the slides was cohort. That helps you in understanding how many users are retaining and coming back to your websites. So make sure you are building cohorts on retention and you're capturing the amount of the data being sold for LTV. For marketers, it's also immensely helpful for creating audiences for retargeting and acquiring new segments. So let's say if through Facebook Analytics, if you found that these are the guys who are most engaged and these are the guys who are converting most with your product, you can use that sample data to create a lookalike audience and make sure that you're spending money and acquiring the same type of users rather than just bombarding your ads over everyone. And last but not the least, check out our dev docs and help centers to know more about it. I'm around. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much. To get started, you can go to analytics.facebook.com. Thank you.